The following podcast contains some strong language and some very average opinions. It's probably best if you don't listen at all.
The Roaring Peacock Podcast.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Roaring Peacock main cast. My name is Adonis. You know me as the Adelites on Twitter. Joining me tonight is our mate Ross from the Man on the Post.
Hello.
Or should I say our man on the post, Ross? And Alex at Riot Badger.
Hello.
So we'll get straight into it then. The news this week. The week began with a controversial pay-per-view decision announced and subsequently the Villa Leeds game brought forward to Friday the 23rd. The cost of pay-per-view was announced as £15, the same price as a glass of wine from Harrods, which is presumably where and how they came up with that price. Eniola Aluko was particularly perplexed about why anyone would have a problem with paying that. In unrelated information, Eniola Aluko's net worth is estimated at £4 million. Sam Greenwood was named Premier League 2 Player of the Month, one of the only two positive Leeds-related news stories this week, the other being the revelation that Ellie Goulding loves Leeds like you do.
God.
Fucking hell. We started, lads. We started. Oh, Christ.
Carry on.
While non-essential businesses are threatened, the apparently essential international friendlies went ahead. Players flying all over the world during a global pandemic.
Yo, you nearly said plandemic there.
I did. Plandemic is a fucking Freudian slip, isn't it? This is going fantastically. As Europe teeters on the edge of a second wave, what could possibly go wrong? Well, at least two things went wrong for Leeds, with Cooper and Llorente sent back to Ellen Road early with injuries. We prescribe a heavy dose of psilocybin mushrooms for the Nations League in the hope it will question its own existence.
That's deep.
But the main story this week concerns Project Big Picture, and for this coup d'etat, I'll need the help of William Shakespeare. Friends, Leodiensians, football fans, lend me your ears. We come to bury Project Big Picture, not praise it. In a week that stank of the dourness of international football, the better part of valor became indiscretion, as the whistle blew to reveal the Big Six's proposal to assassinate association football as we know it. A group of billionaire owners, conspiring in the shadows, like a scene straight out of Julius Caesar, have let slip the dogs of war upon the Premier League lion, and uneasy lies the head that wears the crown. This proposed bailout package is nothing more than a Trojan horse, a brutal power grab with the subtlety of a blunt executioner's axe that has failed to break the skin of the Premier League. Let us not mince words. This would be the end of any competition and would create a Major League Soccer type dynasty where only one of 6 clubs could be English champions. It is a pact with the devil, if ever there was one, to save the Football League by selling the soul of English football to 6 undeserving clubs owned by foreign billionaires whose goal is only to make money. This game, which we love, can only die once. And the fault is not in ourselves, but in our stars. We know what we are, but know not what we may be.
Fucking hell. Good night.
That was the week, lads. Oh, and we've got moderator Graham Hyde wanting to enter. Should we let him in?
No, come on, Graham. Graham.
There he is. Mr. Graham Hyde, ladies and gentlemen, from the Leeds United Supporters Trust. How are we, Graham?
I'm really good, thanks.
What have you done with the money, Graham? What have you done with the money?
I bought myself a beer with it. Fine.
Well, that'll start off, hostile. We've got to do it.
Oh, that's all right. Go straight in. To be fair, given what was on Twitter yesterday from Lardy as to the sort of questions, I'll cope with that. Trying to set up a fight with you, Badger, for some reason, so I've no idea.
Standard. He's just calling me a fraud for using a HelloFresh on my recipes, so we're at loggerheads at the minute.
You've been on here about 30 seconds and I've had 600 in-jokes fly at me, slap me in the face.
Oh, welcome to Leeds United.
Okay, so Graham, we would normally have gone through a lot more, but we had some technical issues, to say the least. But let's just crack straight into the interview then. And you're from the Leeds United Supporters Trust. Now, for some of us, we're aware of it. For other people, they're not aware of it. And for some people, they're aware of it, but they don't know what it is or what it does. And so there's levels of knowledge or ignorance. And I'm right in deep in that sort of ignorant deep end. So if you could please explain who you are and what it is that the trust does.
Okay, so the Leeds United Supporters Trust is an entirely not-for-profit, independent organisation that brings together the views of its members on what's happening within Leeds United to try and campaign on a number of different issues for fan welfare, for the good of the community that sustains Leeds United, and just really to sort of bring together a voice collectively for fans and members.
Okay, and can you give us some examples of victories, fantastic victories and painful defeats?
You may notice on this Zoom call that my background is, kind of a certain stadium. Go back a couple of years or so, about 4 years ago now. And one of the things that the trust did was to secure Ellen Road as an asset of community value, which means that basically the club can't sell the ground without it at least being offered to fans to potentially buy in the first instance. So that's an example of the sort of thing that the trust can do. It campaigns to get things like safe standing in the ground. On a more local community level, it supports Leeds Fans Food Bank and has been sort of a great champion of that. It also supports Andy's Man Club in Leeds. Probably on a less sort of charitable basis, but more on an arts basis. We've been strong champions of things like murals and Leeds United artwork. So with the Lowfields Road mural, which is the if you like, the 92 midfield alongside Howard Wilkinson carrying the trophy. That was us that we crowdfunded a few years ago. We're now in a new campaign, basically to crowdfund a whole range of different pieces of artwork across the city and really sort of bring the city as a community back to the club and to make it as one again.
Alex, Ross, do you have anything to add to this podcast? Do you fucking bring anything at all to it?
I just no, bye. No, it's a bit of a busman's holiday because obviously I'm slightly involved in the trust as well, so I know all this stuff. But yeah, it's been really good to see that sort of stuff from the inception of the trust, to be a little bit more involved in the club and give that voice. I think now it's, we've got to the Premier League, and I think now it's representing fans in a really weird scenario with COVID, isn't it? So I don't know how do we adapt to do that.
I think the fact is, if you go back in history, the trust was born of a time when kind of we had truly horrific owners that pretty much wanted to kill the club and just take money out of it. So there was a definite need to have somebody who's independent, that was shouting about the bad things and trying to raise the roof a little bit and raise the profile. We've now got good owners. I mean, you're stacking up basically what a person who's killed one person against a person who's killed 40. Owners are owners. They're self-interested. But
Sorry,
ultimately,
who's killed some? What?
look, well, I'm sure.
Hang on a
Obviously,
minute.
I'm alluding to Cellino here.
That's the clickbait article for this website. For this
Yeah.
podcast.
Cellino's
Full
a
of all
murderer.
doubt, nobody has died in the making of this podcast.
I'm alluding to Cellino on a boat off Libya, but you can Google that one. That's out there already. But yeah, there's. I think now we're trying very much to be sort of a supportive unit. There's still things that need to be sort of pulled and sort of questioned. We can't just sit back and be super kind of, wow, we're in the Premiership, this is great, and just think, well, the owners have got us there, then they must be really, really nice people. They wouldn't do anything wrong. Owners need that little bit of help and guidance in their stewardship, because ultimately, like any sort of thing like that, they're fans, but they're not necessarily the same fans that we are, having been born into it, and therefore it's they have a different worldview.
So just going back to this Cellino,
Have you not read this?
he's killed somebody.
Oh, no. Hang on. I'm not personally saying that Cellino has killed anybody. That could be ending up in
Allegedly.
litigation. But, however, there is a strong link between a boat that he owned that mysteriously appeared off the Libyan coast with a number of dead bodies on board.
I saved the boat.
What? And then turned his phone off mysteriously.
I cannot believe you've not read about this. This was of public record.
I mean, obviously, there's then the shooting incident, basically, when somebody kind of went onto his property. But that's another one. So Cellino's full of little stories like that if you look them up.
Jeez, I thought he was bad, as it was.
But he played the guitar with the Pigeon Detectives at the Christmas do, so everything's good.
It was all forgiven, but he plays a Stratocaster, so I don't trust him. And it's a 70 Strat, so no.
Fucking hell. I'm going to get pelters all year now for this from
Plastic fan, not knowing the history.
I can't believe this guy doesn't know about Cellino and the boat. Where were you when Cellino was serial killing people on his boat?
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly. The Roaring Peacock podcast does not endorse murder or accusing anybody of murder. Yeah.
We only thought that Cellino did a few lines in the cubicles. Allegedly.
Could you imagine that as like representative of the trust? It's like going to the club and saying, "We'd like you not to kill people on boats."
Can I just say that from a trust point of view, we do not endorse murder, and if we felt that our owner was involved in that kind of activity, we would campaign pretty hard against.
We are holding our owner for account for the alleged murder of seamen.
Okay, so this is going well, isn't it? So some of the big topics recently were about the season ticket refunds. And is there any more updates or anything like that you have to tell us about?
In terms of last year's or this year's?
Well, this year's, I guess, because last year's has been sorted out, and I think everybody's got a rebate now.
Just about. I think pretty much the last few have been sort of landing.
Yeah, that's good.
So, yeah, I think in terms of last year's, that they've now sort of finally been sorted. And let's be honest, the club have had a tough time.
Mm-hmm.
They've been really challenged in terms of furloughs, the COVID situation, being able to process a load of details. They had 3,500 that came back with bank details that didn't quite match how they wanted, or that the forms hadn't been 100% completed. But ultimately, that gave them a huge challenge. So they've waded through that and they've got through it. And now everybody who asked for their money back has got their money back. And some of those were really complex. I mean, there were people who'd unfortunately passed away and it had gone through probate. There were people who'd changed bank accounts. There was all sorts of stuff. So it was a complex ask. On to next season, or this season in effect, and the club line I think is fairly consistent, which is, look, we don't know what we're doing because nobody's telling us what we're doing. So we don't know whether fans are going to get back at some point, whether they're going to get back at no point this year. And so to make a policy that sort of says, yeah, we'll give you your money back. All right, but what happens if they give everybody their money back, and all of a sudden then by January everything changes and we're back in the ground?
But there are some clubs that are giving refunds based on the games. So as soon as there's a home game, by the way, are you sponsored by a certain drinks company?
What? Because I'm drinking. Look, if Thornbridge Brewery want to sponsor me, I'll happily take that. Yeah, I mean,
it's outrageous.
Their California Sun West Coast IPA is very tasty.
I hope you're sending the lads here some of that. Some of your sponsorship.
Look, to be fair, kind of, I'm the host. I'm doing this for free. I'm surprised I didn't receive a package in the post to make the process a little more entertaining.
Yeah. What, we're going to send you a peacock or something?
Well, look,
a roaring peacock.
That just might make a lot of noise in the garden and upset the neighbours. So, to go with the ducks. My ducks would fight it anyway. It's fine.
Okay, but who would win, a duck or a peacock?
Well, to be fair, peacocks are all show, aren't they? They're not. I doubt they're really that hard. I mean, to be fair, it's a strange kind of thing. It's all showy. It's got like the back end, but ultimately, it has to kind of the way a duck impresses a female duck is the foot-long corkscrew cock.
You're insulting us, aren't you? Firstly, you're saying that we're all show, and we've got nothing behind the glossy front end. That we're not that hard, and that we've got small dicks.
No, then just not corkscrew shit.
And that's it. Which and to be fair, the corkscrew's the frightening bit about it.
And even totally going off in the weeds, right? So the reason that ducks have that is that they reproduce through rape, which is a terrible fact of the animal kingdom. But the female duck can decide which male duck sperm is selected to reproduce, because they have a labyrinth inside them which they can just decide who it is. Jeff will do this month. Yeah. So welcome to the Roaring Peacock podcast about corkscrew penises and ducks.
But can I just point out, we've got bigger penises than ducks, some of us. At least one that I know of. Probably. I've never seen a duck's penis. Okay, moving on.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So, serious stuff then. Ross, bring us back on track, mate.
Yeah. Come on, Ross.
Yeah.
You haven't fucking said anything. This is why we're...
I don't tend to get involved with the trust stuff too much. All I know for the trust really is that Ken Bates used to hate you guys and blamed you for scaring away investors and that sort of stuff. What's changed? Why is it different?
Ken Bates, thankfully, is kind of no longer around. Ken Bates used to blame anybody who basically challenged what he was doing, and I think calling fans morons, etc. I think was his way of deflecting from the fact he was just literally taking cash out of the club. The trust now, I think, he's on a reasonably good footing with the club. The club are generally quite open in the way that they approach fans, that they'll have conversations. Angus always says, ultimately, anybody can contact him and he'll try and give them an answer on whatever their question is, whether that's via email, what have you. He will do that. We sit down with the club fairly regularly and have one-to-one meetings where we can talk with that. So we've built up a relationship. Now, sometimes, we're very supportive of what the club's doing, and that's great. There are times when we're not so supportive, when we believe they make mistakes, and that's where we do our best to try and hold them to account, as said. So, I think our relationship with the club at present is strong, but it's independent.
So, yeah, I think the challenge comes when we're saying, you guys are saying that you're the fan's voice, and then people say, "But you're not my voice." How do you reconcile that sort of thing?
Well, I think the traditional thing we always say is that ultimately, first of all, we're our members' voice. So we are the voice of our members, and we try to represent the wider fan base as best we can. So one of the things that the trust is trying to do is build strong relationships with other fan groups, be that marching out together, be that Ludo, be that the Leeds United Supporters Club executive, and just try and get so that actually occasionally we can have a more collective voice. I think a great example of that is probably when we brought everybody together to do the Stay Away campaign, back in May time. when we started that, and we sort of led a campaign, got everybody on board. Everybody was happy to sort of support that message, and push that message of stay away, which is one that all fans groups pretty much could get behind. Everybody was happy to do so, and therefore the message came from everybody, led probably just by us doing the kind of the grafter bringing together the project.
Yeah.
Is there going to be a Gary Speed statue? And what about this idea for a salute statue from the 70s team?
Okay.
Is that going to happen?
Look, I'm not so sure. Bryn obviously last week on one of your previous podcasts said that he'd been approached about a Gary Speed sort of statue in terms of getting in touch with Gary Speed's parents. We're not aware particularly of any sort of statues being planned at this stage, but that doesn't mean to say that they aren't. There are things that happen sort of that we're not proxy to. From our point of view, we're focused on putting as much different sort of Leeds United related art across the city as we can possibly do, not simply at the stadium, but in the four corners of kind of the borough of Leeds, really, from Pudsey through to central Leeds through to anywhere else. And the key thing is for a piece of artwork that we're putting together, what we need people to do is ultimately, if they have a building end, a gable end that can be painted on, get in touch with us, and we'll look at doing it.
Okay. And now the week started off with this whole pay-per-view fiasco, and you guys sent out an email addressing that kind of. And do you just want to go a little bit into that and what ideas you have? Is there going to be like some, fuck off pay-per-view beamed from a projector onto the side of the East Stand, or have we got planes flying by? Are there going to be cheerleaders outside with those things? No, pay-per-view. No.
I think you're confusing us with Time to Go Massimo as a group, which has been done before. But yeah, we're not the same. Ultimately, we aren't as direct action as perhaps that might have been. So our viewpoint is that ultimately the imposition of additional costs to watch games is unwelcome. It's poorly timed. It smacks of greed. Now, the club, when we talked to them, said ultimately it was a done deal, that they were basically given, look, if you want your fans to be able to watch these games, that you agree to this. That's it. That's the only option. It's the $14.99. It's done via the broadcasters. Any kind of spare cash after the broadcast costs will come back to you, but in the main will go into a pot for the EFL. So the clubs felt as though in the main that they had to kind of sign up for it. I think we're a little bit frustrated that the club missed an opportunity to take a stand.
Yeah.
And you look at Leicester City and they did. I'd be interested now to see whether Leicester City's games are on pay-per-view, or whether actually, no, you said no, so none of your games are going to get shown. I'm sure the people of Leicester will be, heartbroken.
Yeah. It's a real shame that, because you've got a populace that have paid out for season tickets, paid out for Sky, paid out for BT Sport, and then a group of really rich people in a room have decided that £15 is fine for people to pay to watch football that they've already paid for in a lot of circumstances. So it's a shame, because last season when we were in the EFL, I know the rules are different, but screening them games via LUTV went fantastic, and we had Bryn on and we were talking about that. It's a shame we couldn't do something similar, but I think we are going to miss football. We are going to miss games because of this. So.
There's a really insidious side to this. There's two aspects to it, as far as I can see. The first one is that if people pay for it in numbers, it will become a constant fixture, not for this season, but for future seasons, and they'll know then that people are willing to pay £15. So they're testing the market essentially. And then the other side to it is, if people don't pay for it, then they can turn around with this project big picture and say, oh, well, nobody wants to watch the smaller clubs. We know, because nobody bought those pay-per-view games that we put on.
Leicester are being trolled. There are only two games that are on TV, are both on box office.
So it would see that their no vote basically had no impact on it. And I think, therefore, that probably strengthens the point of view that a club like Leeds could have taken a stand alongside Leicester and said no, and it still would have enabled the vote to go through, but they'd have emerged with a bit of credibility. I think it's interesting you talk about the project big picture and how this links together. One of my key challenges is the price point. I think $14.99 as a price point is excessive. I think that ultimately, I know that basically the broadcasters want to make sure that the caliber of the presentation is exactly the same as if it was being shown direct on Sky or BT or Amazon or what have you, with multiple camera angles, the production, etc. But the fact is, I don't think that's necessarily where the appetite for the viewers is on these kind of pay-per-view games. And I think the challenge is that if you look at as Alex said, some people have already have got paid for season tickets already. Not every club in the Premiership has already gone through the whole season ticket raft. There are lots that haven't. So Leeds are a little bit in a group on their own there. But I think what comes about then is as you link that into the big picture piece and you say, okay, so we trial pay-per-view and it works. Fine, lovely. Well, actually, as part of the big picture debate, they want to have 8 games per club that they can sell wherever they want, however they want anyway. And the reason for this is that ultimately they want to be able to maximize revenue. Now, if you took one of the packets of football that normally gets sold out to Amazon or BT or Sky or what have you, and said, right, each club can have 8 games that they can sell themselves, what you're going to get is LUTV would ramp up its capability. And if you remember what Bryn was saying about basically investment was needed in order to take it to the next level, that would happen. And the fact is, Leeds, by having sold kind of 45,000 views to LUTV for championship games, would sell 100,000 at least for a Premiership game, if not more. Okay. And if they were sort of positioned at £10, £15, that's sizable revenue, that probably, I mean, let's say if you sold 200,000 and you're talking about that being, at £10 a go, well, that revenue stream is basically more than the current payment would be from the broadcasters for that match. So the larger clubs will basically benefit from that. There's no question about that. And what it allows them to do is potentially explore this concept of moving away from longer term broadcast dependency. Now, the broadcast dependency at the moment is very, very heavy in the Premiership, because ultimately you look at clubs like Bournemouth, who were there last year, with sort of 12,000, in the stadium. They ain't making the money from basically their match day revenue and from other commercial models. It just isn't happening. They're entirely dependent on that broadcast model. Now, that means that what you've got is then in the Championship is lots of clubs who are chasing that dream without the sustainability of non-broadcast models. And I think, without sort of wanting it to become into an oligopoly with like just large clubs that have huge global fan bases at the top of the game, ultimately that's slightly more sustainable if you basically are then charging your own fans for viewing rather than it being from a central pot that is benefiting from everybody.
I guess what I was going for was that we're kind of damned if we do and we're damned if we don't. And yeah, I mean, but it's kind of clear what will happen. I put out a Twitter poll, and as soon as the news broke, and I said 15 quid pay-per-view, what will you do? And I also said retweet after voting, got 1,268 votes and only 36 retweets. So what are you doing, guys? Come on.
I retweet it.
God. And 10% said they'd pay the 15 quid. 10% said they'd find a pub where it's on. 62% said they'd find an illegal stream. And 18% said they won't watch it. So you've got 90%, or just below 89%, saying that they won't pay it.
This comes back to the price point. So at $14.99, lots of people are then turning around saying, right, okay, a bit like the boxing. If you're doing a boxing pay-per-view, you get your mates round, and you watch it all together. So there's in effect 10 of you paying that sort of 20 quid to watch, a boxing match or a boxing card. So you'll get people who collectively do that, which in the current climate, given the sort of COVID restrictions and the various tiers of lockdown we're facing, is not great for public health.
No, they'd be like, pass me the popcorn, mate. Oh, could you give me that COVID over there as well? Thanks.
Well, or the disinfectant spray, you know, kind of what have you. But I think you've also then got the situation of saying not only is the price point a challenge in terms of people then getting together and doing it, as you say quite rightly, there's a price point where people are quite apathetic and will pay it. So let's say that was at a £5. People go, oh, it's only a £5. It's not worth the hassle of getting IPTV or what have you. Now, at £15, you know, people are sort of starting to go, hang on, wow, all right, well, look, I might look at an IPTV subscription. When you think that, like a
bafflement of these millionaires, why aren't they paying it? It's £15.
Yeah.
well, you know, and that's it. Ultimately, that's it. You know, kind of whilst they sort of jet around on their sort of Lear jets, etc. You know, wondering why we feel a little detached from them.
So let's talk about Project Big Picture then. And that's kind of our main story of the pod. And I just want to kind of lay some fundamentals down so we're all on the same page. So the plans began immediately after Leicester won the league. The champagne was probably just falling onto the Fox's turf. Spearheaded by...
This can't happen ever again.
Sorry, Ross? Yeah, let's not.
This can't ever happen again. Let's not let this happen.
Spearheaded by Liverpool and Scum's American owners, it's an effort to consolidate the recent dominance of the Big Six. The redistribution of money throughout the pyramid fails to recognise the move to expand European competition. In reality, this redistribution of money will just further divide the gap in the Premier League because the Premier League money is being divided, not the European competition money. And the change of the one club, one vote rule is the critical point. It would allow the top six to alter anything they wanted to, including immediately reneging on any part of the deal that they're putting forward, but also, for example, firing the Premier League CEO, blocking any approaches from wealthy owners who wish to take over a lower 14 club, effectively ending any meaningful competition. Would give the clubs the right to sell their own games on their own platforms, as we discussed, and further diluting the TV rights of the entire Premier League, which would obviously reduce income for teams like Burnley, who nobody wants to watch. While money would filter down, strict salary caps would be enforced across the EFL, making it impossible for Championship clubs to gain and secure Premier League status. The hopeful signs are that it has probably been leaked to try and kill it, and there is no way the other 14 will vote for it. And initially there was an EFL meeting, and it showed that about 90% of EFL club chairmen support the plan. And there was also a joint statement that came out today from fans of the Big Six clubs. They have issued a statement condemning it. So that's the big picture of the big picture.
So I have been purposely avoiding reading about it just so I could hear it like that. And oh my God. So the thing is, what that strikes me, and it's on first reading, is that the EFL clubs have said that they're in favour of it because that's survivable. That's all about survival. They're not bothered about going up or going to the Premier League. They just want to survive because that guarantees money, but also castrates them from ever being promoted. So why would you vote for that? Because it's supposed to be a competition, not a business. So, Great. Fantastic.
Ross, thoughts?
There's one good thing in all those proposals is the fan charter, capping away tickets at £20, away travel subsidised, focus on return to safe standing, and a minimum away allocation of 8% of the capacity. That's good. The rest of it is absolute fucking bullshit. And if it gets passed, it's absolute shit. So it's hard enough to get into this division. We're here now, fine, that's great. But for the other clubs, what's the incentive to just carry on and survive every season?
That's it. Seems so.
In
Pointless.
effect, the good proposals in this and the workable proposals in this. So there is great. Look, let's be a little bit fairer about, you know, kind of how the money's divided down the pyramid. Let's support the lower clubs and give them some genuine sort of sense of financial stability out of the riches, rather than it just be pouring into agents and players' pockets, which is what it's currently doing at the moment. It also basically offers £100 million to the FA, which would be really beneficial in terms of building grassroots football again, looking at working sort of, you know, those kind of angles and really re-establishing football as the national game in the UK. Our problem lies is that all of this is basically being done with, you can have that, but we want this. Yeah. And it's been driven by this idea, this notion. If we were just talking about that, actually what the big clubs want is to be able to sell their own games, you know, down the line, do that. Well, look, if that was the trade-off and they were saying, right, you can have 8 games, which is what the proposal says, 8 games that you can sell yourself, prove your concept of market, prove the fact that you can make your own additional revenue streams with your larger fan bases compared to the Burnleys of this world or what have you. That, I think people would probably go, look, I get that actually, you know, that's really going to build a really powerful financial base for the richer clubs. But they've already got that, and they're already getting that because they're in Europe. The big problem is this veto and power grab, this notion that 9 clubs that have been the longest serving in the Premiership will be given special voting rights, and actually only 6 of those need to vote in a certain way for it to pass. So it's clearly a big 6 power grab. It's about them being able to make all the decisions in football. And when we think about it, you know, kind of, do we really want a situation where we're looking at the way American sports are controlled, which is, you know, application only to leagues, no promotion and relegation, franchise systems that are basically in order to, you know, built in order to maintain the riches and the benefits of certain you know, clubs, certain, you know, franchises. And I think this is it, is that ultimately Fenway Sports Group, you know, are looking for that kind of stability. The Glazers who own Tampa Bay basically are exactly the same. They're thinking along the same lines, you know, and this is it. They're looking for that stability of revenue, stability of power that enables them to always stay at the top of the game and not have any change, or, as you say, with Leicester being the sort of the catalyst for it all, the fact that somebody, how dare they come and win the Premiership? You know, how dare they?
Of those big 6 clubs, only 3 of them are currently in the top 6. One of them was 14th, the other 16th. Why are Spurs included in this to start with? What have they ever fucking done? Ever?
Because they've got a big stadium. They've got a big stadium that needs paying off.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Interestingly, hidden in the proposals, there are also basically bits where clubs would be able to claim back from the Premier League sizable rebates on their stadia. So you're talking about Liverpool being able to claim back about 40 million for their recently renovated stand. And I think Spurs, you're talking about it being nearly 100 million plus that they would be able to claim back as a rebate against their stadium build. So it's just constantly looping back into ways that, in effect, they can, you know, be self-interested and look after themselves.
When he said, funnily enough, hidden in, I thought you were going to say foundations of Spurs ground is Cellino's old friends from the boat. Sorry, Adonis, go on.
No. 1961 was the last time Spurs were English champions. And that's kind of what I was hinting at the start when I said undeserved. Yeah. Just scum are in a right state. And if Woodward wants to drive the whole Premier League into the ground after driving scum into the ground, after we've just got back after fucking 16 years of watching the shit show. And the thing is that we become such a huge asset to the Premier League when we're in it. That the opening game at Anfield was the most watched Premier League opening game in ever.
Yeah.
If you look at the records, so I think we're a huge draw and we add so much to it. And yeah, okay, maybe they've got half a point when they're talking about teams like Burnley and saying, you know, no one fucking watches Burnley and they get basically the same money as us and everybody watches us. And I can understand that because we're in the same boat. But at the same time, even though they piss all their money up the wall, and so does Scum, by the way, I still think it's healthy for the competition, and it makes the Premier League better if the teams all get an equal share, and it just dilutes the competition itself. Like, it makes it less of a spectacle.
Yeah. Look
By
at Everton,
not
top
doing
of the
it.
table,
And
playing great football, got a good manager. They bought really well in the summer, not overstretched themselves, and they're flying at the minute.
And they're not part of this. So
exactly.
Exactly.
But the thing,
Yeah.
are they not? All right, okay.
but is and
Well, yeah, they're one of the 9, aren't they? But not one of the 6.
Yeah.
Longest
So they've
serving,
even-
not consecutively. It's overall because West Ham have been down, haven't they? So
Yeah, Saints were in League One when we were. Fuck's sake.
yeah, they're even trying to ruin 69 for us. Is there nothing these people won't stoop to?
I think there's an interesting thing. I mean, look,
Right.
we haven't heard from our club on this, so we've yet to see what their thoughts are. And you think that ultimately they will have reservations because ultimately that they're going to be sidelined already within the top table. However, long term, I think if you listen to sort of what Parag Marantha was saying recently from the 49ers about the potential they see of Leeds United as a global brand, you could see that long term, actually, the idea of having that kind of top table seat would be interesting.
Yeah, but we're not there yet, are we? That's the
No,
thing.
we're not.
Yeah,
and therefore, I think it would be a move that came too early for the world domination plans.
And would you want that? Would you want it? Would you want to watch Major League Soccer style Premier League?
no.
And it comes back to ultimately that, kind of our belief is that fans are at the heart of football, not TV revenue, not TV sort of, watching of games. It's fans. And therefore, whilst ever we build this global fan base, and we've got a huge fan base all over, and don't get me wrong, there are lots of people who travel ridiculous, sort of journeys to come to Leeds games, when permitted, be that the Scandinavians, be that the random people that come from literally all over the globe for games. The fact is, fans should be at the heart of football. And these are discussions going on about the deep future of football, and fans as stakeholders are not even included in the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not been at the forefront of the discussions for this, is it? And it feels like, and I'm new to this because, like I said, I've personally not done it, but it feels like this has been drawn up a while, and they've seen COVID as the opportunity because they've seen how the smaller clubs are struggling. This is the time to sort of release it because people have been more accepting of it because money, and it means the business survives.
The fact that they'd be able to have veto power on other clubs' ownerships, how is that in any way fair?
It's not conducive to a fair competition,
bollocks.
is it?
No, my friend's a Newcastle fan. He's absolutely fuming at that rule more than anything because obviously they want to get taken over by the Saudis, which, fair enough, people have opinions on that, but it's not Mike Ashley at the end of the day. This is like keeping Ken Bates in charge over and over and over, never letting anyone else take over because it's the status quo, and the bigger clubs see that as a more reasonable person to hold the reins of the club. It's ridiculous.
Can I just point out, Ken Bates would never have paid for Joe Linton.
He would never have paid full stop, just nothing.
We would have bought a striker that scored as many goals, though, to be fair.
In my opinion, they're missing a trick anyway, because the Premier League is in a position now to be, I mean, they talk about it being the best league in the world, but it really would be, it really could be the most watched and the best league in the world. Because they've had fair distribution of money between those clubs throughout the last 27 years.
Yeah.
And we have a situation now where Serie A was in the 90s until the economic bubble burst. They had all the best players in Serie A. All the teams was so strong, and they were all had a chance to compete and to win the Italian title. And that's where we're coming to now. We're coming to a bubble now where we've got all the best coaches in the Premier League. You've probably got about 7 or 8 teams now who could potentially win the league. I wouldn't have said that before Villa spanked Liverpool 7-2. But now I feel like that's the case. It's almost wide open, this league, and if you reduce it to a MLS style or a fucking Scottish Premier League style or Bundesliga style league, where there's only a couple of clubs who are going to be able to win it, then you completely destroy the product and the thing that we've created over this whole time. It's just greed.
Yeah, I mean, if you go into a season, like any club should have that thought that we could probably do something this season. Not, I'd settle for 10th, or if we don't go down, I'm happy, but we'll never get into the top 6 or the top 10.
Yeah.
No point. What's the point in competing? Because you're not going to win anything.
Do you not think
It's
we're
just
almost
about-
there anyway? I mean, you take Leicester as an example, but they had the seventh largest wage bill in the Premiership the year they won it. So they weren't exactly playing, playing on a cheap budget. So, I think this is it. We're already a situation where that's where the world is. Now, the fact is, because of that, you're creating a ridiculous bubble in football where Premiership football in itself is a crazy bubble. So you've then got that difference between the lower leagues or the EFL and the Premiership. I think ultimately the model of football in its current state is arguably broken. It is unsustainable, and certainly the FSA as a fans organisation is pushing for a sustain the game model where we have greater sharing between the top division and the lower divisions, but that actually we look at that being on a basis of clubs being able to genuinely sustain things, and do it properly. Now, whether that's improving sort of contract negotiations with players in the Premiership, which means there's immediate break clauses or immediate drop clauses for relegation, so that you're not then having to pay ridiculous parachute payments into the Championship, which then distorts the Championship as it currently sits. There's a whole raft of things that need to be looked at. And whilst this is it, football, if it's in a state of malaise, if it is struggling, somebody needs to come up with a plan. And I think in that sense, there needs to be a smattering of sort of, praise for the fact that at least a plan has been put on the table, and we can now start to have the debate properly about what good looks like. Because I think the brilliant thing is you are going to get basically all these EFL guys who are sort of turning around saying, yeah, look, just show me the money. I just need the money to survive. So I'll sign my life away because I've no ambition. A Fleetwood Town, in all honesty, are thinking, do you know what? Championship's probably my ceiling. So I'm not really that bothered about, kind of what it would take if I got to the Premiership and then found out I could be voted against by, everybody else, at the top. That's not their problem. So what they're looking at is that immediate bailout piece. And I think to link the bailout and other structural changes to a clear power grab by 6, very wealthy club owners, that's the real bit that sort of leaves a sour taste, I think.
Yeah, definitely. One of them can't even pay the mascots, can they? So it's not good. Not good at all. What did they say in the proposals about relegation and promotion from EFL? Is it they're still keeping the playoff model, or is it?
No, 2 teams down, 2 teams up. The playoffs will be a 4-way playoff between three teams in the lower division, and the team that finishes third bottom in the Championship and the Premier League will go into a playoff.
So it's like rugby league.
Yes.
No,
So
thanks.
it'll be 18 teams. Yeah, 18 teams.
Yeah.
Bottom 2 go down. And so that's 18 and 17 go down straight away. And then 16th will play 3rd, 4th, and 5th
Against the third,
in a
fourth, and
playoff.
fifth. Yeah.
Those of us who, I'm looking at you guys, and it's probably not quite so relevant, but in the 80s, you might be able to remember the fact that, kind of as we were sort of at the top of the old League Two, as it was, the second division, we played off against Charlton, who were in the top division at the time, and basically lost in a playoff, and then didn't make it up. So, we've had these kind of playoffs in the very early conceptions between the top division and the second division in the past. I just wonder, ultimately, is that a move towards kind of the franchise model where there's no relegation and promotion?
Yeah.
Is that what they're testing towards? Already they're talking about it being an 18-strong division at the top end. So, they're already culling 2 people and saying, right, everything's a bit more compact. So there's 2 less spaces to go for, less change, and driven in that way.
Yeah, abolition of the League Cup and the Community Shield, which is fine. Get rid of both of those. They're pointless.
With the League Cup? No.
Yeah, nonsense. Nonsense trophy. Get rid of it.
Birmingham City in the semi-final. That was one of the best days I spent at Ellen Road in the 90s.
Swansea Bradford.
That was such a fucking
in the final.
shit season, and that was just one good moment in it when we knew we were going to Wembley and Yeboah scored, and we were laughing at the Birmingham fans.
Yeah, went well, didn't it?
I think we're possibly at a point where
Show Ross.
Yeah, you have to make a decision between tradition and kind of moving forward. And so stuff like the Charity Shield, the Community Shield, it's a traditional part of the footballing calendar, but clubs are more bothered now about doing sort of kind of lucrative overseas fixtures pre-season, than a warm-up in front of a minor royal.
But what game are you going to get tickets for if there's no fucking League Cup? That's it. It's gone. Never going to Ellen Road again.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have given up your season ticket.
Well, just join the 20,000 on the waiting list.
Yeah. That's a very optimistic waiting list, that, isn't it?
And then basically advise several of those who are currently in season tickets to get a job working for a trawler off the coast of Liverpool.
Callback humour, ladies and gents. Callback humour. That's what it's all about.
So the FA chairman, Greg Clark, said that he was involved in the early discussions with Project Big Picture, but then he withdrew. And he also said that the Big Six threatened a breakaway league if it wasn't agreed to.
They were just going to
let them go. Just
compete
fuck
with
off,
eating chocolate biscuits. Oh, different guy. Oh, sorry, different sort of breakaway.
Think about breakaway now.
Yeah, I'd rather have that.
But
how would that work? So it's just a league of 6 teams, which is watched by the most plastic fans on earth. Great, yeah, you do that. Brilliant. Fantastic. Sod off.
Let them have it.
I won't have to deal with them on Twitter anymore. It's great.
So, Graham, tell me, what is the plan? I mean, you're the vice chair, right, of Lust. Just want to say that a few more times. Lust. And okay, you're the fans' voice, right? What are we gonna do? Are we gonna chain ourselves to the gates? We're gonna glue one hand to Billy. What's happening? What's the plan? How do we stop this?
Whatever you want to do on a weekend, Adonis, is down to you, mate. But for us, as I said, ultimately, we're not about direct action. We're about kind of, considered campaigning and sort of trying to sort of influence rather than, sort of battle on the streets for a result. I think, look, the trust is going to clearly have discussions with the club. I think we'll put out a statement, as you've seen already this evening. There's a number of sort of trusts have placed statements out there that are saying there's concerns about these kind of moves and what impact it will have on the game long term. I think the trust will echo that. As I said, we need to finish our discussions as a board, but I'm fairly certain we're going to be echoing that. And I think then we'll be campaigning with the club and saying, look, we want you to be pushing to turn this down as well. Understand, are there bits behind the scenes that we don't know about that are maybe influencing decisions? Can a different view that will support the lower leagues and football structure better be found? We don't know, but I think certainly we'll also be joining with other fans groups across the country. So there will be a collective voice of fans going beyond just sort of, trust members and Leeds fans that is saying, this is what we believe as football fans is right for the game. And it will be a much more inclusive approach, I think, than one that looks to sort of direct all the power to 6 particular clubs.
Yeah.
Okay, and can you just briefly, before we let you go, can you briefly just kind of maybe explain to people why they should become a member of Lust, and how they can go about doing that?
So in a really simple sort of way, being a member of LUFC means that your voice is part of what we do. So whenever we have any major decisions to make, we go out to our members, we ask them, we survey them, we're in contact with the club regularly, putting their voices across. And believe me, I'm quite a strident voice on a lot of things. And there's a lot of times that, kind of my voice isn't actually the one that's being heard when we're talking at the club. We have to go and present what the majority of our fans and members are saying. So it's about being part of that voice, being able to have your voice heard directly by the club. There's also the fact that you're part of a bigger picture, a community of Leeds fans that are doing greater good projects, be that campaigning for safe standing back in the ground, be that building sort of relationships with the local community, helping people who are in vulnerability and need be supported, such as through the food banks, doing things like the mural artwork that is basically brightening up and connecting the city again back with the club. All of these things are projects. We have a future trust that is basically for young members, and actually coming up in just over a week and a half's time or so in the half-term holidays, we have our first Future Trust board. So that's going to be held at Ellen Road with 10 of our junior members who are going to be going to the club, meeting a board member from Leeds United. It's been run by Ben Shires, who's the Future Trust president. On CBBC, etc., and they're going to get a chance to actually ask their questions directly to Leeds United as part of our Future Trust board. So it's about being part of something that collectively is trying to do the best that it can to look after fans' best interests, to bring the club and the fan base closer to the community, and all of that really just to sort of promote Leeds United as an entity, and Leeds United fans, and to get away from, kind of this vision that, kind of some have worldwide about us being kind of back in the 80s hooligans. And it was a pretty rough sort of time back then, but we're a different world now. So I think it's about being part of something, having your voice heard, being able to sort of be part of that process, to add something back into the community, and to do great things. We are going to be introducing various other member benefits sort of wider throughout this year. And we have Jip who's working on those. But if you want to become a member, it's pretty straightforward. You can go to leedsunitedtrust.com, have a look on there. There's a join section, enables you to do that. It's £10. £10 a year to join, and to be part of that process. You can join as a lifetime member if you want for £100, but £10 a year. If you do so, basically you can then have a junior member that can sign up as part of that process as well. So if you've got kids and you just think you want your kids involved so that they could potentially be at the club asking direct questions as part of a Future Trust board, become a member yourself, sign your kids up as well, and then they get to do that.
And to add into that, which is a much more important thing than all that, the AGMs are at Lambert's Yard and they do a really nice pale. And I'm missing that pale ale so much. I think it's a Caledonian. That was so nice.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think this year
we can't do that.
We will be. But yeah, we've certainly had them there before. I mean, last year actually, we had the AGM at the centenary exhibition that we created. So we created basically a mini museum of never seen together memorabilia from the history of Leeds United as a trust, and put that on exhibition for just over 2 months in Leeds City Centre as part of the centenary celebrations. And that was us. That did that. So nice link through to that, Alex. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'll accept my free pin badge.
All right, so you can go on to leedsunitedtrust.com to become a member of the trust, have your voice heard by them, and they will pass it on in their regular meetings to the club. Thank you very much, Graham. It was a pleasure to talk to you, and thanks for your input, which was vastly more intelligible and a lot less duck dick styles than we normally have.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Graham.
Thanks, Graham. Have
Cheers.
a great night. Cheers.
Bye.
So, Lust, Graham Hyde, how was that, fellas?
Yeah, it's cool. It's good. It went off into the reeds, shall we say, for the duck dick bit. But yeah, I think you need to redo the artwork for this podcast.
The duck dick. I kind of didn't have anything else to talk about. It's just basically England
Boo.
and Wolves. So
And,
England
and internationals injuring all as fucking players.
Yes. So England, I had on my notes, shameful display from England. I had 3 points, dire as shit. Henderson is a whining, diving, shameless cunt. And Mount also has no shame in celebrating that tame shot, which looped over the keeper, luckily. But the worst of all is fucking Gareth Southgate, who he might be top of the Nations League, the fucking Mickey Mouse competition that no one gives a fuck about. But he needs to just he's playing anti-football, and he makes me hate England and football and him, and just fuck off.
It's just dreadful. I tried to watch some of it and I turned it off. It's so slow and ponderous. No one knows what to do.
So I can't watch it. It's just, and they're not utilizing Phillips correctly, which annoys me.
Yeah.
They're not playing Grealish when they should, and that pains me to say because I don't like the lad, but he's in the form of his life and he should be playing. The team selection doesn't do anything for me, and why?
Grealish has got a lot better since he stopped his fucking floor gymnastics. Still does it every now and then, but not as much. And he's improved a lot since he came to the Premier League. And good on him. He deserves his place. And at least he when he gets the ball, he tries to fucking run forward and make something happen.
Yeah.
Why do we always end up with these fucking shitty England managers? Great players, generations worth of good players, and we get fucking Sven-Goran Eriksson or what was his name?
Fabio
That
Capello.
fucking Italian cunt.
Capello.
Roy Hodgson.
Roy Hodgson. I'm from Venice. God. Anyway, the point is, sack him off and get somebody decent in. For fuck's sake. Yeah. If you're gonna risk all these players getting COVID, if you're gonna fucking do all this stupid shit during the middle of a global pandemic, at least make it watchable.
Yeah.
Well, the one good thing about that weekend, though, is that most of the Portuguese team have now got COVID, and we're playing Wolves on Saturday.
I think they've all tested, haven't they? They've all tested negative, which is
that's a shame.
But test them again. Just make sure. Just test them a couple more times because.
And can Ronaldo
imagine?
do test
and at number 1 for Wolves. Yeah. Can Ronaldo just lick the swallow?
Ronaldo, can you get a bit closer to those Portuguese players, please? Just a little bit closer.
Sorry, I can't quite hear what you're saying, Mr. Ronaldo. Could you just clear your throat, like in the vicinity of these players, please? It's like, and in net is the tea lady. On the left wing is the kit man. What's the minimum they can start with? Like 9 players. Yeah, let's do that.
It's less than 7, isn't it? And then the game's abandoned, I think.
Cool. Yeah, just feels like the kids, the tea lady, and the kit man, and we'll still get beat.
Just give us the 3 points, and we'll move on happily. Thank you very much.
That'll do. Yeah, just don't cough anywhere near us.
You see that France's young midfielder Eduardo Camavinga posted he got Ronaldo's shirt after the game and put, I won't wash it. You probably should wash it, mate.
60 degrees.
I wonder if he's got the app installed. Oh, I need to self-isolate now.
Oh dear. Is that it? Is that everything?
I think that's it, isn't it?
Are we paying for Villa or not? We're sacking it off. We finding an illegal stream? You don't have to answer that.
Yes.
If my solicitor is listening, no, I'm watching it legitimately.
Yeah, I didn't like paying £10 for Championship games. I'm not paying 15 quid to watch fucking Villa play.
No, I'd rather not.
It seems a bit excessive. I mean, I know we've just complimented Grealish, which felt weird enough, but...
His new best mate, Calvin Phillips. You've seen him in England training.
Yeah.
Like Bezzy mates now.
Oh,
I
really?
don't know how I feel about that. Yeah, Grealish wanted to do his one-on-one drills with with Phillips. I don't know how I feel that they're kind of pally.
Well, it's all going to change when KP fucking snaps him in
Smashes
the
him.
first minute.
Yeah. Take a red.
Have some of that, you cunt.
Cunt.
And your
It's not
haircut
like he holds
shit as
back,
well.
though. He
hair
fouled
is particular,
Tyro, didn't he, in the Wales
He
game?
did.
So he doesn't hold back, does the lad?
Had
Good
to
lad.
tweet out an apology, didn't he?
So it was the week that the Big Six tried to assassinate association football as we know it. Let's hope it can hold on a few 6 months longer, just enough time for Leeds United to win the Premier League. It's a very goodbye from me. You know me as the Adelites on Twitter, and it's quite a goodbye from Alex.
Quite a goodbye from me.
And it's somewhat of a goodbye from Ross.
Somewhat of a goodbye. Goodbye.
If you'd like to tell your friends and family and random people on the street about the Roaring Peacock podcast, we're not going to stop you. And if you want to do it online, you can use the hashtag #PassThePeacock, which took me literally 10 seconds to think up. And I regretted it almost immediately. Just like all the creative things in my life.
Or alternative, you could use dash out the duck dick, and we could go with that.
Hashtag bigger than a duck stick. That was your Roaring Peacock Mancast. We'll see you very shortly for the Wolves match preview. Thank you and good night. Most of our stats come from LUFC Stats or LUFC Data on Twitter. You should probably give them a follow as they're more interesting than us. A very special thanks to Adam Elliott, Adam Warner, Barney Stewart, Cookie, Ed McIntyre, Ewan and Howard Metcalf, Josh Pearson, Laura, Leon, Nige and Rob, The Light Show, to all our family and friends.
So many games to play, don't care what's on your mind.